Right. I'd like to welcome everybody to the near final of Vegas. Has everyone had a great time? That's very enthusiastic. Clearly you've not drunk enough. Right. Welcome to Ship Fittings and Misadventures with me, Baltic. One. I'm in Pandemic Legion, but I have been around the block a little bit. I did spend 6 years with Goons. Any here? There they are on the corner, hiding away. Right, some of you might remember me from such talks as my Megathrone was fit with the following. And I'm maybe partly responsible for these little buggers being all over nullsec if we use the signals. Now, for those of you who are new to come to my talks, I'm going to give you just a little bit of a warning. Don't take anything away from this thinking that you're learning anything. Because believe me, you're probably not. What I'm about to give you is a whole load of terrible advice that you probably shouldn't in any way follow, but you might have a lot of fun if you do so. Just be warned, your leadership may not thank you for it. Now that said, let's crack on with quite possibly one of the best things CCP has done for quite some time. And that's Abyssal space, or as I call it, spooky space. Because it's downright terrifying. Now for those of you new to EVE, or who have been living under a rock and staying somewhere, Abyssal space is a new type of space full of nasties, desperate to turn you inside out. And the only way to enter this horrifying area of space is by using filaments. And the only ships at the moment that can get into them are cruiser-sized hulls. Now, this has led to a good few people asking me, can alphas run these things? Now, I am up for a challenge, but just taking a maxed out alpha isn't going to be sort of like challenging enough for me. So I decided to look, how soon is too soon to fly into Abyssal space? Now, to do this, I had to start off with brand spanking new player. So say hello to Not a Radder. Does anybody want to guess what we put Not a Radder in? Any guesses in the room? The king of low-effort ships, the Vexor. Now, I did do this for a good few reasons. The first one is that turrets, to me, aren't that great in these sites. Basically, you want to go for missiles, drones, which is why everybody uses a Gala. But a Vexor is a beautiful ship to start out in because drones are a lot easier for new players to get into. They do have a few problems, though, namely that they're incredibly suicidal. And there was a lot of ways they can find to die in this area of space. So you do have to watch these things like a hawk. But as long as you look after them, babysit them, nurture them, if you will, you will get results out of them. Now, I do have a video. Now, this is the first video I've done. Does anybody remember Freelancer? Yes. Right, you'll know how old I am now. So I've not done a video since then. So hopefully, this is going to work. And there we have it. Yes. Yes, it is possible. And how many of you actually knew missiles actually behaved like that? Because I certainly didn't. So, I'm going to have to give you a crash course in how to do these things, because there's a lot more than just a ship fitting to go into these things. You have to know what are you doing, and the first thing to know is know your filaments. So the first one up is the calm sight. Now, these ones are by far the easiest. These are the ones that your alphas are wanting to go for, straight off the bat, because these are the ones that you will be able to do. They do come with a 30% penalty, which I'll get into later. Next one is the agitated. Step up in the NPCs, and the same penalty. You then get to fierce. Jump in the penalties, jump in the NPCs want to kill you. Raging, another big jump in your penalties, another big jump in NPCs. And finally, chaotic. These are by far the nastiest, and as a certain CSM member found out, also very pricey. Because these things will eat you alive, and yes, they do pod you when they're in there. So you've got to watch out for them. Now, there's also 5 flavors of sights that you can go into. First one up is electrical. Now, the penalty in this one is the EM resists, but you get a bonus to capacitor recharge. You then have exotic. Penalty to kinetic resists, 50% bonus to scan resolution. You then have firestorm. Penalty to thermal resists, 50% bonus to armor hit points. Gamma. Penalty to explosive resists, 50% bonus to hit points. Shield hit points, sorry. And finally, dark. Yeah, I wasn't going to go there. Penalty to turret fall off, an optimal range, and you get a 50% bonus to max velocity. So it's important to pay attention to these. As you're going to want to, it's going to make your life a lot easier, depending on what fit you go with, what filament you choose to go with. They all make a really big impact on what you're going to be facing in those things. But another of the big ones are some of the structures that are inside. Triglavian towers. This one is the tracking tower. You can easily identify it because it has a big glowing orb around it. But some of these are a bit of a double-edged sword, especially this one. This is the Deviant Autonomous Suppressor, also known as a flak tower. Now, what these things do is they will shoot down all drones, rogue drones, and missiles that come within range of them. And their range is 15 or 40 kilometers. Now, these can be really handy if you go in there and you want to get rid of a load of rats around you. Or they can be an utter nightmare if one of the battleships ends up under one of them and you're flying a Gala and none of your things can hit it because it keeps on killing them. You then have 2 types of cloud. You've got the blue one, which increases your signature radius by 300%. And then you've also got this one, the orange one, which is actually the more dangerous one if you're flying a active shield fit, because it will be a 40% penalty to your shield boosting and duration. So if you get yourself into one of these things, chances are it's going to kill you. And these are all the skills that my alpha pilot had when he successfully did Abyssal run. And when you look at it, there's not a huge amount on there that's really special. In fact, it only came out to just over 1 million skill points. So how soon can you get into these things? Pretty quickly, really. But you will end up dying a lot to them. So it's always better to get your skills up. This is the fitting I had. Now, before you point and laugh at it, a lot of this is down to actually a lack of skills. So, for example, I've got a sensor booster there. The reason for that one, locking skills were bad. So I needed the extra range on it. Now, it does look fairly tanky. You've got 2 reps in there. But again, you've got low skills. That's going to hurt your rep amount. But as your skills go up, the tank goes up. So life becomes easier as you play. And as you get more and more skills, more and more money, you can beef up this ship, replace some of the mods with some more useful ones, get a second web on there perhaps. Completely up to you. But it does mean, if you want to get into Abyssals, straight away from starting, you're going to have to specialize into a ship like this. And specialization is the key to new players getting into EVE properly. Now, it was at this point I was going to talk to you all about ECM. And I had this amazing fit that I was going to show you. But while I was making this, CCP announced a little change that came out, which completely threw that out the window. So I've had to make a few subtle changes to what I'm going to be doing. Nobody will notice. So, every ship has sensor strength. The lower the sensor strength, the harder it is, well, the easier it is to jam. You've then got the strength of the ECM module. You feed these into a formula, take into account the number of jammers, and don't forget to take into account your ship and your bonuses. And if you're in fall off, or if you've got rigs, or if the other ship has anything fitted that's going to help him. And you can see how this is, a complete nightmare. So rather than try to explain this through mathematics to a bunch of borderline raging alcoholics, I'm going to do this in a way that a lot of us nerds can understand. So, we've got our adorable little newbie floating around in his lines, patrolling his space in an ECM Abyss. Don't laugh because they have existed. And he comes across this, a Le Shack. Now, with just a point and a mid in the, a point and an ECM in the mids, our brave little pilot, he grabs tackle, activates the ECM, and calls for help. He jams him. He keeps on jamming him. At this point, the fleet's on the way, and the Le Shack pilot is absolutely raging in local. And then this happens. The Le Shack locks our little Abyss and unleashes 3,000 DPS of pure rage on him. And that's how ECM worked. It's incredibly powerful when it worked. But because it's chance-based, you always get the unlucky roll of the dice. Unless you go with something a bit more specialized, like this, the Rook. And to me, the Rook is one of those criminally underused ships, because it is actually pretty amazing. For one thing, it's one of the few ECM ships that actually does come with some teeth attached to it. And if you go smart with the mids, you can get a pretty decent shield buffer out of it. And combine it with powerful ECM, the fact the ship does not show up in the D-scan, and you've got a very irritating ship. And this is the fit that I've had quite a lot of success in, and a lot of fun. Now, I've done a few unpopular things with this ship, despite the fact I'm flying ECM. I've got only 2 ECM mods in there. Now, most people will fill all those slots, apart from a prop mod, with ECM. Now, I always say that's a bad idea in this, because when you get that unlucky roll, where's your tank? It's going to die. So if you've got a tank, you use the ECM mods as basically like you use webs. It's there to help you. You don't rely on them, though. More unpopular, though, I've put heavy assault missiles in there. Now, they do have a reputation for having the damage application of a wet towel but they're not as bad as many claim them to be. You can get some pretty decent firepower out of this thing. This is one of those ships that can punch way above its weight. The combination of its shield buffer, that's the ECM, the firepower, it was a solid asset to a fleet. Or at least it used to be a solid asset to a fleet, or solo. Because we go back to the changes. And the Rooks fared fairly badly out of this if you want to take a solo, because CCP changed the way everything's worked. And if you haven't already listened to how these changes have happened, this is basic lowdown. So going back to our little Griffin, under the new plan, when he lands a jam on that ship will be jammed to everything but the Griffin. So he can shoot that Griffin. So ECM is still in a fairly powerful position. He can disrupt logistics, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're relying on ECM as a solo pilot, well, I'm sorry, but I think people are going to be a little more happy than you about this change. And that is one of the problems about being very specialized. Because if you're very specialized, every so often, CCP are going to come at you, and they're going to clobber you. So eventually, you're going to want to be nerf-proof, as they say. And the best way is to be a generalist. Now, for me, the best generalist ship out there at the minute is this, the Praxis. Eve's most likely ship to be possessed by a demon. Because look at the thing. It's also one of Eve's most adaptable ships. Because you get 7 high slots, 7 mid slots, 7 low slots, 3 rigs. And this thing is equally happy being fit with any tank you want. Just look at the resist profile. It's exactly the same in all stats. So that means you can hull tank this thing, you can shield tank it, you can armor tank it. It's just as happy. And its bonuses are pretty amazing as well. 25% bonus to all large turrets. That's all of them. You then get a 25% bonus to heavy missiles, cruise missiles, and torpedo damage. 50% bonus to drone hit points and damage, and some probing bonus, but who cares about that, really? All of that together makes the Praxis the holy grail to people like me who just love messing about with ship hitting, because it's a ship that will allow you to do practically anything with it. Such as this. You've got a nano shield blaster set up. Perfect for going on a roam with, or camping a gate with. Or this one, terrifying new platform. Gets decent damage out of the drones as well. Or, if you spod brains out and delve, now you think I'm joking about this, but this thing does actually make a decent miner. And let's face it, you will be by far the flyest miner in the belt with this thing. Just don't get caught. There are a few downsides to this ship, though. It's definitely not the fastest. In fact, it's probably one of the slowest battleships out there. And like all generalists, it can do an awful lot of things, but the specialized ships will be better than it. Well, for me, it's a beautiful ship. It's beautiful to fit. It's fun to fly. And it is one of my favorite ships at the moment. Now, this is normally where I go into the questions and answers, but after the last talk I did, I got an awful lot of mails come through, asking an awful lot of questions. So I've decided I'm going to do a few of those. And the first one is, I get it. Using a battleship in low sec is a dumb idea. But let's just say I want to do something really stupid. What could be better, a Scorpion or a Raven with light missiles or rapid light missiles? And I've actually done this before with a Raven. So I'm going to go into a scorpion this time round for him. Now, normally a scorpion is fit like this. And it is absolute, well, it used to be absolute cancer when you met one of these on a low sec gate. How many of you have fallen victim to something like this, going through a gate? Gate camp? Good few of you. But that's not what our friend wants. He wants something ridiculous, like he wants something rapid light. So let's go with this one. Now, bearing in mind, I made this before the ECM changes came in. So yeah, this advice is completely useless to him. But what we did here was use the bonuses on the ship, which is only to ECM. We slapped in a couple of light missile launchers. We've got a newt in there. We shield tanked it, and let's face it, if you put a battleship in low sec, a frigate gun's going to want to come and kill you, aren't they? So this thing could, used to, in theory, be able to wipe people out. But seeing as how the changes have come in, just add more tank to the thing. This was the next one. Now, I got an awful lot of this. I got ganked in highsec. Is there any way to transport stuff and not be ganked? Now, the advice over the years has been fairly simple. Don't put billions in the cargo hold. Don't fly without a tank. Don't AFK in the gate without a tank with billions in the cargo hold next to code. But that's not really helpful. So I'm going to go to what I think is probably the hardest thing to kill in highsec for hauling. It's this. Blockade runners can be phenomenally hard to kill. This is my personal favorite one. The Procurer. Nearly went blank there. Now, first up, it gets a CovOps cloak. Now, this is really important because the CovOps cloak allows you to warp cloaked. So that means you're not having to do a micro warp drive trick to get off these gates. It also has a sub 3 second align time using this fit. It's not invincible, but combined with the cloak, nothing's going to lock you on a gate. And it's also ludicrously fast. This particular one gets 18 AU a second because I've got high grades plugged in. A lot of the interceptors in the game will never hit that speed. It's effectively like taking our courier and allow them to deliver parcels a Mark V. But of course, none of that matters if you do all of that and then you die here on Jada. Probably the most lethal trap the game has ever known. But there is a very simple way of making sure you don't get blown up on this thing. And all you need is 2 bookmarks. First one, you stick deep inside that hangar bay. That's the one you warp to when you go into the station. You can instantly dock from that point. The second one, if you burn straight out from that docking bay, straight ahead, as far as you want to go, so you can warp to it, that means the second you undock, you warp into that point, nothing can lock you. You're cloaked, you're gone. Now, using these tools correctly, in my opinion, you're pretty much ungankable. And I say pretty much because, quite frankly, you're always going to have that stupid moment when you decide, nah, I don't need to worry about it, there's nobody there. And that's when they get you. Now, I do have time for a few Q&As, if we've got some people with some brass lungs. Is the Praxis better than the Megathron? Well, for everybody else, yes. Personally, though, it's a love affair I just can't shake. What level? Oh, filament. It was the basic. So you go with the calm filament when you're starting out when you're going in with that particular Vexor. Anything else, you will probably melt in seconds. Right, is anybody else? Yep.
Did you happen to try a passive shield tank with Vexor?
I didn't, because I had my heart set on that one, and I didn't have enough time to test all of the range sort of thing, so I had to...
What was the DPS on that one?
Pathetic. It was abysmally low. It was, we're talking somewhere around 180 to 200s sort of range. But as I say, when you get your skills up, especially in the drone skills, it really, really quickly climbs up. So the Vexor will get up to a pretty decent firepower pretty quickly. I was just trying to sort of get it done as quickly as I could to see how quickly you can get into it sort of thing. But the Vexor is perfectly fine. It's at home on alphas running these things. And I do have a theory that you can go up to level 2s. I've yet to do that, so don't take it on me. But if you want to try, feel free to.
How do you feel about your namesake being used so heavily this year in the Doctrine?
It's a really weird feeling. I mean, I said this at the time when it came out several years ago, how weird it felt, because I was never expecting it. But these days, when people say, oh, what we're fighting, I can turn around and say, oh, you're fighting me.
What's the cheapest way to acquire a Praxis?
Cheapest way? Steal from somebody. But they are really cheap on the market. They're one of the cheap, well, yeah, one of the cheaper, I don't know, would they be classed as faction battleships? Yeah, they're only like 100 and something mil, so yeah, grab hold of one and play with it. They're really cheap.
How does the Harpy Megathon work?
Ooh. With great difficulty and great expense. Basically, it was, well, we had a Megathron that was shield tanked, had nanos in the lows, an awful lot of cap mods in it, and unfortunately I had to do railguns because the Harpy shot a fair distance away, but I also had to put in high-grade ascension implants to get the speed up to where it needed to be. But at the time, I think I was spending $2.5 billion to get the ship to do what a 55 million ISK Harpy would do. Which is ludicrous when you think about it, but at the time, it was a lot of fun. Right, can't see any more hands, mostly because of this light. So I'm going to finish off. Have we got Reload in the room? Or is he still working? I think he's probably still working. Well, a few weeks ago, we had this happen. It was a weekend of gaming for charity. Now, on Reload's stream, I made a little bit of a commitment. If his stream hit £9,500, I said I would do a challenge in the red coat uniform. Now, a few people have asked me, where is this uniform this year? And the answer is, I'm doing a challenge in it. I'm hiking to the death of Captain Cook in the red coat uniform. I'm not doing this for any other reason that I promised on the stream that I would do this if we raised money. Now, at the time, it was sitting at 9,400. Within about 10 minutes, it was at 9,600. So, yeah, I'm now doing this for the charity. And if any of you haven't already, if you could please make your donation to Able Gamers. They're an amazing charity, and they could really do with any help you can give them. And unfortunately, this is just about it for Vegas. So all we've got left to look forward to is the closing ceremony. So thank you very much for coming. Yeah, thank you very much.